Today's guest on the Ownership Advantage brings a rare blend of military precision and local business heart. Robert Dix is the owner of Unicorn Moving, one of Austin's most trusted moving companies that's built on values like integrity, service, and excellence. Before leading his team at Unicorn, Robert served as a U.S. Air Force officer and aviator with multiple combat deployments under his belt. Now, he's applying those leadership principles to build a company known for high standards, long-term team loyalty, and an 85% referral-based business. You're going to love this conversation about what it really takes to build trust, scale with care, and run a values-driven business that truly lasts. Welcome, Robert. I've got a question for you right off the bat as we start this conversation today. Why is buying a business one of the best things an entrepreneur could be thinking about doing?
Well, there's no better learning than by doing, right? And if you can walk into a successful business, then you walk into cash flow, right? And if it has a pretty good management team in place, then you just observe for a few months, let it play out, and that's the best way to learn about buying a business. My original experience was in a startup 15 years ago. Read, what was it? Who's the guy? Peter Thiel, 0 to 1, all that type of stuff. I did a startup for about 6 years. And it's hard work, man. It ultimately very rewarding and all that type of stuff. For a phase of life that I was in, I had a newborn and working 100 hours a week wasn't really in the cards, uncertain outcomes, all that jazz, right? So, after that, bought and sold businesses for about 5 years for a firm, and then realized, okay, 0 to 1 is nice for some, but taking something from 1 to 10 is way more in my wheelhouse, right? And we can get into it and talk about different tactics and things to look out for, but it's just, for my personal taste, it's just a way more rewarding experience, right? And frankly, it's way more practical, way easier, and your chances at success are way, way higher.
Yeah, I love that so much. And the reason I love to start with that question today is, we were talking a little bit off camera here, and, the fact that you have been through the startup phase and you've seen, the other side of it. And, we talk about a lot, in the coaching space and understanding the risk level is so much different and the time investment is different, right? I think of, talking to other entrepreneurs and they're like, well, I'll just do a startup because I don't have any cash and, I can do this. I'm like, yeah, but it takes up all of your time and you go slower most of the time, right? So tell us a little bit about making kind of that transition. So you went through this journey of startup to kind of buying and selling companies for another business, and now about 4 years ago you bought this business called Unicorn Moving. Tell us a little bit about that transition of now buying kind of your own business and what that felt like as you kind of took that first leap for yourself.
Yeah, 100%. So as you mentioned, did the startup, that was a tech startup for about 6 years, and then moved into something where I could work more regular hours, kind of. During the course of that, so the neat thing about that, like in a lot of industries, you get to look at all kinds of industries, right, and start seeing the patterns. And our favorite clients were buyers that would buy something, spend the next 3 years growing it, and then selling it, taking the capital from that, buying something larger, growing it and selling it, and that kind of trajectory. I just thought it was cool, And they usually had one superpower that they would inject into that business. They would look for businesses that needed that one superpower, right? And then they could come in and just blow the thing up, right? So a business that had been at, let's say, 3 or 4 million for the last 20 years, they come in, they have great marketing chops, and inside 5 years, that thing's doing 20 million. And then they sell it, rinse and repeat. So I just thought it was neat. So that said, that's probably my favorite job ever was as a business broker. Totally loved it. Had no intention of leaving whatsoever. Turns out, during that journey, I fell in love with, what we call dirty boots businesses, right? Skilled trades, HVAC, electrician, plumbing, home services, all that type of stuff. Why? I had been in tech before. I saw the market starting to get a little bit of tech fatigue, harder to raise capital. Everybody's trying to do it. So, I mean, just like a very wide pool of competition. Investors are getting way more selective because the hangover is coming from all the failed VC rounds and inability to get rounds. So it's just like, dude, everybody's over there. Let's go over here. Nobody, well, not nobody. A lot of people are ignoring the skilled trades, which is the one thing that everybody's going to need forever. It's Amazon resistant, right? If you're in a growth market, I'm in Austin, Texas, right? So if you don't screw things up, you're going to naturally expand with the market, right? So for this, people aren't going to stop moving, right? It's always going to need a mover. So not to get too far down the rabbit hole, but my family and I were moving ourselves, right? At that time, Unicorn Moving was my boss's client, right? And so we're moving ourselves. I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? I'll use Unicorn, whatever. And we did, and we got to know the guys after for a couple of days. And after that was over, I was like, this is the best customer service experience I have ever had. Not moving, in anything. So I was like, yo, huh. So it kind of got him, kind of caught my attention, but I didn't think a whole lot more about it. And then after that, Unicorn Moving was on the market. It had a buyer, all that type of stuff. At the 11th hour, buying a business or the sales transaction usually takes about 9 months, roughly, right? The real range is anywhere between 6 months and forever, right? But 9 months, call it. And my boss's client, the original founder of Unicorn, was on the 2-yard line, and then just had hairs started going up on the back of his neck about the buyer. It was a small PE firm, and so he bounced, right? At this point, the seller has deal fatigue. He's just been through it. I mean, there's kind of a lot to it, right? And so I started reading through the seller's book, which is just basically the company information, and asked my boss about it. And he was like, are you thinking about buying a moving company? I was like, no, that's ridiculous, right? And then a couple of weeks go by, I keep on asking questions, and he asked me the same question, and I'm like, well, maybe, I don't know. So I had a meeting with the seller. We vibed a lot, we think a lot, we think it the same way about a lot of things. And so I just said, hey, look, dude, no negotiations necessary. I'll take the deal that you already had on the table, honor that, and we can kind of get this done. And so that was it. And it worked out great. And he's just an awesome human being. He's been really supportive throughout the whole thing. So yeah, it was they're not all success stories, but this one was a success story. I'm really happy I did. Turns out I love the moving business. I do. And the people are awesome.
I love that, and I'm excited to kind of dig into that transition, and you kind of when you as a new owner of a business that's been existing, kind of what that looks like, team structure, team building, different things like that. I do want to get into that, but you'd mentioned something in there, loving these dirty boots businesses. Yeah, and everybody's been over on the tech side for a while, and there's a little bit of fatigue there, and acknowledging something you said in there was it's Amazon resistant. There's it's not going away, right? No. And I do want to ask some questions a little bit later on about how AI can impact different things. And as I look at the landscape of businesses, and you look at a lot of the businesses that have been on the market, the ones that are owned by the baby boomer generation, and there's this whole transfer of business wealth that's continuing to happen over the next 5 to 10 years, right? Yep. And a lot of these are businesses that they're not going anywhere. Like, people still need their windows washed and their cars cleaned, and they moving and those are not things that AI by itself, without maybe super advanced robotics, those aren't going to be the first ones that are going to be gone. You've got a whole other swath that's being disrupted a lot faster from some stuff. So I think it's really cool. I'm excited to dig into how you think about that and what you're looking at as we go. But since you were talking about the business itself and a little bit of this transition, what is that like to take over a business and having some existing team? How do you structure the transition? Do you come in and change different things? It sounds like the deal was a very positive one
Yeah.
overall. But
Yeah.
I imagine team building and things like that. And I know that's something that's kind of near and dear to the skill set that you have. So
Yeah.
talk us through that. What does that look like as you come into the business now and you look at how do I really get this team to continue to do the amazing work that they've been doing?
Yes. So it was scary, just because it's not known. Never been. I've worn a tie forever, right? And so going into this, I was like, are they gonna, like, when the seller is very generously announcing me and who I am. I was still scared because it's like, are these guys going to see right through me? Like, are they going to know that I've got no freaking idea what I'm doing? But I did have the benefit of the experience of seeing postmortems on when business sales go really well and when they don't go so well. So used to mail out this letter to the buyers about a month after they closed. So they're the new owners of this business. And there was a letter written by an M&A lawyer up in Dallas that said 10 ways to completely destroy the business that you just bought, right? So if you take a look back, most people that buy businesses have some sort of entrepreneurial twist, right? So for better or for worse, right? So what does that mean? You got 1,000 ideas in the shower. Awesome, right? So right before you're going to buy the business and it looks like you got an LOI in place, it's like, cool, this is probably going to happen. All the wheels are turning about all the improvements you're going to make, all the stuff. I mean, good idea. Gary is just shouting in your ear, right? And, you're going through all the P&L and all the financials. And it's like, oh, dude, I can do this and this and this and this and this, and then millions, right? And, okay, cool. But just from a human perspective, what do most employees know about business sales? It's stuff they've seen in TV, it's stuff they've seen in movies, they've seen the two Bobs, they've seen George Clooney, the Axeman, it's just like, okay, this is scary, we don't know who this guy is, am I getting fired, right? That's why typically in most business sales, you're on non-disclosure, so the current owner cannot tell anybody, employees, vendors, clients, anybody that they're selling, because it can break stuff, right? And people can start looking elsewhere, right? So from an employee base, everybody can get freaked out and pull out the classifieds and start looking for another job immediately, which means you with the new owner are screwed, right? So I think something I learned is keep a super stable ship, right? Because the business is the people and the processes and the customers, so make sure that doesn't go away. Cool. So make them feel very safe. So, hey, morning everybody, I'm the new guy, right? First of all, and then immediately talk to everybody one-on-one and say, hey, look, the seller really valued you. I really value you. I trust his judgment. So you're not getting fired. In fact, here's a retention bonus. You're getting half right now, and you're getting half 6 months from now, right? And do that with everybody. Give everybody a small symbolic raise, and just make them feel safe, right? Keep this thing stable. For good idea, Gary, you don't know enough about the business in the first year to change anything about the business, because something where you could save a bunch of, that guy is redundant. Okay. So you let him go. You save a bunch of money. Well, it turns out he was connected to 50 other things, and stuff starts breaking, right? So all of this, Tanner, is a very long-winded way of saying, don't make any big operational changes in the first 6 months. Sit back, shut up, 2 ears, 1 mouth, observe, learn, don't change anything. Because when you start changing stuff, people are going to freak out. And you don't know whether they have good change tolerance or not, right? So learn. And then once you actually start getting it, then you can tell people, hey, look, this is great, but I think we can make it a little bit better, and then just start managing change management, if you can. So yeah, that was my general philosophy. Only because I had the benefit of knowledge of seeing people that were very smart, like super high street cred, parachute into a business, buy it, parachute in, change a bunch of shit, and then everybody's bounced into things a lawn dart inside the first 3 months. You know, it's like, oh, dude, right? So it's kind of putting your ego aside, putting some of your natural entrepreneurial instincts aside, not away, just over there, you know, and then, provide stability to everybody, gain their trust, and so that was my journey. We also, I cheated a little bit because for our movers, they make a percentage of the job. They're not hourly, right?
Okay.
So they make about like 15% of the job, give or take. So our pricing matters, right? Unicorn Moving was right in the middle of the pack as far as pricing in Austin, Texas. I bought it, so summer right now is moving season. It follows the school calendar, right? Mm-hmm. So moving, and your family knows a bit about this, Tanner.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. So we closed in mid-April, kind of found the feet, and saw that there was kind of a gap. We discovered we could raise prices. So we ended up raising prices very aggressively by like 40% inside the first 2 months. So by pure luck and market conditions, everybody got a 40% raise when I got there. So they're all like, oh, wow, this guy, I guess we like this guy now, you know? So I kind of I walked into an accidental tailwind. That helped that a lot.
It's amazing how money can motivate and keep people
weird,
happy.
Right? So anyway, that was kind of it.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. I mean, there's so many things in there that I think would be kind of fun to talk about. But just making the comment that you don't know enough necessarily in that first year to go in and make like lots of massive changes. And I think it's an important piece to highlight for those that are maybe thinking maybe I should start kind of getting into this buying and selling business type thing. Mm-hmm. A couple of my mentors, the founder of Action Coach Brad Sugars, my direct coach that has a portfolio of companies, things like that. And I've watched them kind of do different things, and almost always it's the first 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks minimum is really what you said. It's listen. See what's going on, because from my experience, even looking at a lot of different businesses myself, there's still just stuff you don't get on the front. You can do all the due diligence that you want on the front end. There's still going to be stuff you just don't know about, and being able to just come in and absorb a lot of that first, I think, really has a lot of power. Especially when it comes to the team. So I'm super excited. It's super fun to kind of hear that experience from you as you went through it. There was something else that you said there that I'd heard this a couple times recently, and I believe it was something that Charlie Munger had used a lot in framing different things. But you said the letter of 10 ways to destroy the business when you first buy it, and I think it was his frame that's essentially you look at what are all the things we can do to destroy or mess something up, and then just go do all the things that are opposite of that.
That's great advice. Yes.
So, when you think of, this transition, you had mentioned, hey, you know what, this was a little scary, right? You had to jump in, you're the new guy. There might be a little just natural fear from the employees at this point. You focus on kind of the team building side, making sure that they feel safe. How has your background played into your ability to kind of navigate through that?
Well, okay. Yeah, so outside of the office personnel, right, which is a mix of men and women, movers are, generally speaking, all dudes, yeah? And there is sort of a personality set. They're not the guys that want to hang out in the office. They got kind of a cowboy thing going on. So I was in the military, straight out of college. I joined the Air Force. And my second career inside the Air Force was managing what they're called TAG-P. It's basically close air support, right? So it's Air Force guys talking to Air Force jets that are dropping Air Force ordnance. And it was my job to be the commander. So I had experience, and these guys are, like, that's sort of close to like spec ops for the Air Force, right? But these are they are type A dudes, right? So there's a lot of characteristics. So it was 100% male career field. So yeah, in the way back 20 years ago, I was kind of managing the same guys with very similar flavor to these guys here, So that wasn't the plan. but here we are. So.
Oh, I love it, and it's always fun when you can kind of look back and see, maybe some of these things in the past kind of set me up for things in the future without really knowing it, and being able to play some similar roles in some ways, and see a lot of similarities between different things.
Totally.
But what's been kind of your favorite piece? So it's been, I think you'd said 4 years now since you purchased the business. Clearly, there's been some growth and some things like that. When you look back at just this journey over the last 4 years, what are some of the most memorable things that stand out to you in a positive way? We'll start with positive things first. But what are some things that you've really enjoyed going through working with the team, with growing the business, and or just generally being in the space of building and growing a business?
Yeah. So turns out like my vibe is kind of with the moving industry, which I never would have guessed. It's just like other owners and stuff like that. There's just not a lot of ego in this industry, and that's really cool. You can just level with people. They're salt of the earth people, and it just feels easy, right? And what I appreciate is, so you asked for what was my favorite part of it, and this is going to sound generic. It's not, but it's the people here, okay? Because on a very specific level, these guys work their ass off every single day. Right now it's late June in Texas. It's 100 degrees, right? And so we got 40 guys that are coming in at 5 o'clock covered in sweat. And it's like, that's the guy that just worked for a living. You know what I mean? So whenever I've got any kind of like poor me behind my desk in my air-conditioned office and stuff like that, and then just go and give those guys a hug and they're covered in sweat, and it's just like, I have nothing to complain about. And these guys, they love doing what they're doing, but they're way tougher than I am, and they're way more hardworking than I am. And it's like that. So so the people, I respect these guys because they are absolutely killing it every single day. Throw me on a truck. After a week, I swear to you, I'm in the corner, I'm sucking my thumb, crying like a little girl, And these guys have been doing this for like 10 or 15 years, So it's just kind of like a daily like tip of the hat to like, nice work, guys, and I mean it, like developing and also like they're excellent, and I'm going to give them a shout out in an industry that's super transient, where most movers will hop places 6 months, 12 months, they'll just hop to better pay. Most of these guys have been around here for 5, 10, sometimes 15 years. So it's like an actual family environment. You feel that, like you feel the vibe of that, right? So it's really cool. It's not a revolving door of faces when that's kind of the industry standard, So I feel like we've kind of got something special that I kind of oopsed into, and I'm fully embracing. So it's that. So the culture is awesome, and I'm really proud of that, to be kind of like the torchbearer for that. So the people are awesome, and also, so I said the guys have been doing this for a long time. The result of that is that they're awesome at what they do, and they do a really good job. And like in those lists that you used to read a long time ago, what are the most stressful things in life? And it's like, death of a loved one, then moving. Maybe public speaking was somewhere in there, but it was moving, right? And so to be kind of like an emotional, these guys are technically awesome, cool, right? But they're emotional shock absorbers. They're customer service people that are moving your stuff. So their vibe is so good that it's like, we actually did something today. And nothing against software at all. But like, after a day of building an app or something, and you look back the week, it's like, what did we do this week? I don't know, like, this is a super tangible result. And you made people's lives better, right? In a time where it kind of counted, right? Yeah. So that's my dive into the general. I love the people, but I do. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it absolutely did. And you're so right in terms of these are folks that work really hard.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that can be misunderstood. You alluded to it earlier. My family knows a little bit about it. Me a little bit less so, but the history for the listeners is my great grandfather started a moving company up in North Iowa. My great aunt and my grandfather ran it. My dad worked in the business. Business ended up going under. I think late 2000s. And I remember, having help with some of the moving every once in a while. I was a little kid, so I didn't have to do a whole bunch of heavy lifting and things like that. But I remember being around it, seeing a lot of those the mover guys. My dad knows how to pack a truck very well. I've moved myself a few different times, and there was one summer that I worked for it was a contractor for Sears delivery. So we were doing, delivering refrigerators and washers and, having to move those out of a big truck and all that kind of. I did that for one summer. And it was, summer up in North Iowa. Tired, hot, uncomfortable. Like, it was not something I enjoyed, and it was a lot of work, right? And I think about that from the concept. I was up in North Iowa. Like hot was 90 degrees, right? And you had just mentioned, we're here in Texas, and these guys are having to do moving in potentially 100 and some degrees, and back of the truck. I don't know if they've changed over the years, but I don't think they're air conditioned.
It's an oven, yeah.
So I think it's a really good component just to take a moment and do that shout out, because we would not be here without these types of individuals continue to do the jobs that they do. And I've got amazing respect for all of these types of individuals, and I'm super excited the fact that when we look at the future, I don't think that's going away. Not really. No. So I'm gonna use that as a bit of a segue to lead into some questions on technology and AI and some things like that. Always like to ask just a few questions about it. But when you look at industries like this, in the industry of moving, how do you see AI impacting the industry? How have you started to think about it for you individually or the business that you're running? And kind of what do you see just on the horizon with the continued development and acceleration of AI?
Yeah, good question. I'm very excited about it. And if I think that you are, so we as a team are very forward on AI, right? I think it could be absolutely a competitive advantage in this space. The dirty boots, right? Skilled trades. Here's why. Most of those businesses were started 30 to 40 years ago by a dude or a woman in a truck, right? And then they became 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, and blah, 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 blah. And now they're a 100-person company. That's still, like this place 4 years ago, was running the business off of filing cabinets and legal pads, right? So clear opportunity right there. So a lot of our competitors who are awesome, fantastic at what they do, if I'm them and I've been doing this for 30 years, I'm approaching retirement age maybe, I don't know if I have the appetite to learn AI. It's like, it's time to go, So the ones that do, you got a big advantage, right? So there is a reason that, of all things, so the last 20 years, everybody has been software, tech is eating the world, all this stuff, right? There is a reason that about 5 years ago, the private equity markets got super frothy on home services because they kind of saw around the corner, said, look, there's going to be some changes. We've come a long way with software, but they said the same thing we said before. Like, dude, I don't care what season or condition it is. If your toilet's clogged and you're having a Super Bowl party, you're going to call a plumber and pay off the nose, right? So in the last 5 years, maybe longer, like home services of all things, that's gotten super sexy in the PE markets. I mean, you asked me that 20 years ago, I'm like, dude, you're crazy. And moving is kind of like home services adjacent. So there is really an opportunity. So you said before, baby boomers, what they call it in the industry, the gray wave or the silver tsunami, is the baby boomers all egressing and retiring. I think at this point 2/3 have retired, which means 1/3 haven't, which is tens of millions of people, it's millions of business. There's plenty of books written about the $1 trillion wealth transfer, all that jazz. Okay, cool. If you come in with a decent marketing plan, a modern marketing plan, a 2025 marketing plan, dude, a 2018 marketing plan would still be whatever, and you just slap technology, slap modern marketing on the business, and then raise rates immediately. Dude, you're setting yourself up. And I'm not the smartest guy in the room, by far, but I knew those things, and it just did that, right? So, yeah, well, to answer your question, AI is the next thing. So if you take that recipe of things where there's the current ownership group, who will probably be retiring in the next 5 to 10 years, are generally change resistant because they're in the phase of life where, I don't know if I have the appetite or the energy for that, right? They've been hanging out in this industry for decades, which isn't traditionally a tech-forward industry anyway, right? And you come in with some energy and the willingness to learn all the new tools, yeah, you're gonna have a pretty big advantage, you know? On the tactical level, in moving, you need guys. We're still a couple of weeks away from robots doing all this for us, right? But on all the traditional back-end services, of course, right? I mean, we have said loosely that aside from the moving crews, we're not going to hire another human or a local human. So we've leaned pretty heavily into remote because they're awesome, and blending out with AI solutions. Because, I mean, across bookkeeping, accounting, customer service, operations, and sales, bookkeeping, accounting, and a large part of customer service can be driven by AI. Sales is getting there fast. Still, there's a lot of people that are like, I'd rather talk to a human. You know, that'll be different in a couple of years, right? But on the other side of the stuff, and even finance work, like financial analysis. I mean, we just dump all of our stuff up into chat and say, what are we missing? Make a smart decision for us, robot, and then it will come out with a great analysis. And it's like, oh, I totally didn't see that before. Thanks, robot. And that's it, you know? So it's awesome. So yeah, and this is for this business and almost any industry, definitely in the skilled trades. If you just take a look at, all the job functions, and you say, which role, like, is this a person, or is this a project, or is this just kind of a phase that we need to go through? A lot of that stuff you'll come to discover you can use AI for that. You can save a ton of money. So kind of going back to the PE thing, that's the opportunity that they see is buy up a bunch of 100 movie companies, get them all on the same program software wise, and then you're going to be able to cut out a whole lot of G&A because you do not need humans in America doing your bookkeeping for you at all, right? I mean, though, if you care to throw it into the AI or use some. So there's a ton of, that's a long-winded way of saying there are a ton of efficiencies, especially in this industry that has been slow to keep up historically. You hop on that opportunity in industries where you know people have to buy from you, right? Then that's, I think you can be relatively confident.
That's really cool. I love hearing the perspective, and I love asking about this a little bit in these types of conversations because I tend to be the one that is more on the side of it's never been easier to create some efficiencies and use the tools that are available to us.
Yeah.
At the same time, it requires a mindset and willingness to go and learn those tools. And they're moving so fast that you really have to make that choice.
Yeah.
And I have come across a lot of individuals who are like, I'll just let somebody else go learn those things, but therein lies the opportunity. And it's really cool to see that. But it really is, it's never been easier to create some of these things and take a business that's been a legacy business, that's been around forever, and really ensure it gets to make it to the next generation and
For
beyond. Sure. Which maybe wasn't the case without some really good skilled knowledge coming in the past.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So as we kind of shift to a couple additional questions as we begin to wind down the conversation here, I've got a couple that I love to ask. So really kind of some personal insights to pull some additional nuggets out for the audience.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you about a piece of advice that you've received, and not necessarily the best piece of advice, but when you reflect back and just kind of think through today, what's been either the most impactful or just the most memorable piece of advice that you've been given?
Well, the most impactful, and it's kind of obvious, but it's obvious for a reason, is focus on the people. I mean, and there's a ton of tropes around culture eats X for lunch every day and all that stuff, and that's all true, yeah. But I made a couple of mistakes from the get. Like, we had shark salespeople who were highly effective on the spreadsheet, awesome, but they were so aggressive that it wasn't the culture that we wanted to represent. So to have to let some of those folks go, we were like, oh God, like, I love the results, right? But it's impacting the culture. It's hard to do. Easy to say, sorry, better way to say this. It's easier to say, harder to do when it's your money, right? So like actually sticking through that, unfortunately I have a couple of investors who have been around so many times that they're just like, shut up, Robert, just trust us. You know, and it's like, okay, grown up, I'll do that. But it made all the difference in the world, right? I mean, with this, there's hard skills and there's head skills. All the head skills can be taught. The hard skills, it's harder to do that. So hire for hard skills. And then, I mean, we're not splitting any atoms out here, right? Like they're all teachable skills, yeah? So hire for hard and stick with that and be consistent with that is, that probably have been more impactful than anything else.
I like that. That's a really powerful piece. Book recommendation, but in a different frame. Rather than just saying, what's a book you would recommend? I want you to think about if you had one book that you could gift to everybody, and or a book that you do gift to everybody. What tends to be the number one on the list for giving as a gift?
That one's very easy. It's The Diamond Cutter by Michael Roach. He's, I think, the only Westerner to be accepted as a monk in Tibet. And he was running a diamond brokerage in the Bronx, I think, and they grew up. I mean, it's like a 9-figure business. But he brought all of the teachings, monastic teachings that he had learned into that business. And it all gets down to, I mean, is it kind of a spiritual book? Yeah, sure. But it's a human behavior book too, right? And it's like, is this an Einstein thing? Like, problems can't be solved on the same level? Something like that, essentially. But implementing you have a business issue. What's underneath that? What's underneath that? And he puts it in the spiritual frame. You can take it or leave that. But and then he has kind of tactical advice as far as how you can approach these business challenges with from a perspective that you probably hadn't thought about before. But it's all rooted in kind of like spirituality and Buddhism and stuff like that.
Very cool. I like that.
And
that is not one. Yeah, that's not one that's been on my list. So that I just get to add a new one on my list. I like it. So I appreciate that. Cool. Last kind of personal insight one, and I really enjoy this one. But what are you digging into right now? When you think of like learning things that you're growing through at the moment, kind of where is your time spent? Digging into something that's helping you grow personally.
So wait, personally, not professionally, because the professionally, AI and marketing are like 90% of what I'm learning. AI for the obvious reasons, right? Get out ahead of it. Marketing, because I've always thought when I grow up, I want to be a marketing ninja, right? Because if you tackle that piece of it, and you've got some sales chops, like you can rule the world, right? And I still kind of maintain that, but in this type of industry where it can be viewed as a commodity. It's not, but from a customer's perspective, it's like I need a guy to move those boxes over there, right? And I feel sorry for you if you can actually name a moving company because you have way too much spare time on your hands. Like there's no clear brand leader, right? So it's all about like where to show up your SEO, your marketing tactics, stuff like that, right? When somebody Googles, I need a mover in Pennsylvania, like how do you get to them, right? And again, in this industry, which is still professionalizing, if you can be at the top there, dude, you are so far ahead. And that kind of applies to a lot of home services businesses and stuff. It's catching up, but it's not there yet, right? So now I'm actually getting to do what I always wanted to do, which is go take a super deep dive into marketing right now because it's necessary for the business.
Awesome. Anything different on the personal side?
Learning and growth, we travel all the time just trying to learn different. For me, learning is just learning how different types of humans behave and operate. So we really prioritize international travel and just kind of like learning about how different folks think and see the world. And it's awesome. I mean, I think that I'm sort of growing as a person when I get these new perspectives. God, I hope so. So it's been deeply fulfilling to me, and we're going to do. I've got kids that are at the age 11-year-olds, 10-year-old, and 5-year-old. Me and my 10-year-old just went out of the country for the first time, just the two of us, and bonded and stuff. And he got to kind of see that, right? So I love people. I love different types of people, and so going to hang out with different types of people is my jam, and I'm trying to make it my kids' jam too.
That's awesome. Do you have a favorite place that you've been to so far, out of the country?
So actually, Tibet was probably the most meaningful. Maybe see the world in a completely different way. Last year, went to Antarctica, went diving. That was really cool. A lot of penguins. And then me and my twin brother are turning 50 this year. We're getting motorcycles and going across Mongolia and stuff.
Ooh, that sounds fun.
Yeah, it's super fun. But like very different types of people, so that see things way, way different. Like we get in our bubble, especially in the last 20 years with technology and stuff. And so like forcing yourself outside of that bubble, right, makes, you might get some perspective out of it.
Oh, that's so awesome. So for the audience, for the listeners, if they want to connect with you, if they want to learn a little bit more, kind of hear your journey as you continue to grow Unicorn Moving and anything else that may be coming down the pipe, how can they get in touch with you, or how can they get in touch with your business and potentially use you as opposed to any of the other no names that people don't know about?
Thank you kindly. I'm easy to find. We're on LinkedIn and all the social type of stuff. My social media kung fu is extraordinarily weak, so I would just say drop me an email at robert@unicornmoving.com, and I'm pretty responsive on that.
I love that. Final piece of advice for business owners looking to build a lasting reputation like you. Any final thoughts that you would give to the audience, the listeners, knowing that we're primarily entrepreneurs, business owners? If you could leave them with one last piece before we conclude today, what would you want to leave them with?
Know your own blind spots, and don't fall in love too much with your own idea, would say a smart marketing person somewhere, right? But build yourself a core team, right? If I've got, and we do the personality tests and all that type of stuff to create I've learned that I'm a giant gas pedal with absolutely no brakes and an alarming tolerance for risk. Clearly, this guy needs guardrails, right? Do personality tests. They actually make a difference, and build your trusted inner team to check your genius. And just make sure that everything's going in the right way for the company's benefit and not just feeding some ego. Let's do this genius thing, which is the trouble with us entrepreneurs, right? Is that we can fall in love with our own stuff. So just build guardrails around yourself with people that you love and trust.
Ooh, that's really good. I love that. Robert, I appreciate this conversation so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to go through this process, learn a little bit more about you and this amazing journey. There's so much wisdom, I think, in this conversation that I'm going to encourage our audience to go back, listen to this one again, save this podcast, really go back, listen to these wonderful insights that Robert has given us. If this is your first time listening to The Ownership Advantage, make sure you like and subscribe. And of course, reach out to Robert, say hi, shoot him a quick email and say, hey, saw ya on this thing. Great conversation. Thanks for the inspiration, all that kind of stuff. So Robert, thank you so much for being here today.
All right, thanks a ton, Tanner. This is fun.